It was back to the Free State town of Harrismith for round 5 of the 2018 SACCS. But this time, the crews faced an all-new route and plenty of wind. With the various class championships all coming to a head, there was action aplenty when the flag dropped in Harrismith. All the windswept thrills and spills are brought to you by series sponsors Toyota, Ford and Total Exilium. This is it, round 5 of the 2018 SACCS, the Harrismith 400. The picturesque Free State town of Harrismith has served as a backdrop for the SACCS in the past, but this year saw the introduction of an all-new route with plenty of challenges. With that said, the race HQ and DSP was once again set at the Eram Farmers Complex, roughly 20 kilometres to the west of the town of Harrismith. Over the years, we've experienced every single season under the sun in Harrismith, and this year it seemed as though everything was going to be perfect. Sunny skies, mild temperatures, and incredible racing. All three of those were present in the Free State on the weekend of the 14th and 15th of September, plus one more thing, wind, and plenty of it. The Friday of the race saw sustained winds of around 50 kilometers an hour, with gusts heading up towards the 100 kilometer an hour marker. Crazy conditions on one hand, but pretty handy for the guys and girls taking on the qualifying race of 40 kilometers. With such high wind speeds, there was very little chance of dust becoming an issue, which is always welcome in cross-country racing. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Before we tuck into the action from the Harrismith 400, let's take a moment to review the championship standings after round 4, which was the Atlas Copco 400, held near Bronkhorstspruit in Gauteng. The special vehicles category is becoming tastier by the race, and we have a hell of a championship fight on our hands. In the one corner, we have 4x4 Mega World's Kutsia Labuskakny, who leads the pack. But he was only a single point ahead of Big Johnny Telford, and with 2 rounds to go, Liv Lesotho's Stefan van Pletsen was also still in with a shout, albeit a much quieter one. Nick Gosler was the only leading Class P driver, but held on to 4th spot in the overall category standings. Werner Kennedy rounded out the top 5. Over in production category Class S, saw David Huddy 5 points ahead of Jannie Visser, with Heini Stamfer a further 3 points back. Archie Rutherford, LCD Yacha and Rory Eland completed the Class S lineup. But Huddy's lead meant that a championship was on the cards in Harrismith. All he needed to do was win, and hope that Visser had issues. Class T is where some of the hottest SACC action can be found, and after 4 rounds it was clear that it was red versus blue yet again, Toyota versus Ford. Lance Woolridge of the Ford NWM clan found himself topping the charts by 4 points over Malalan Toyota's Johan Horn, a precarious lead at best. To make things even more tasty, a resurgent Gary Berthold was nipping at their heels after a great performance at the Atlas Copco 400 last month. The younger Woolridge was at the back of the leading quartet, with Jacques Van Tonder rounding out an impressive top 5. When it comes to cross-country racing, the undeniable heavyweights of the battle are the Class FIA machines. These purpose-built Dakar-spec monsters tend to dominate the production category, though a Class T car can certainly run as fast in the right hands. Be that as it may, after 4 rounds, the former Dakar winner and defending champion, Chanel de Villiers, who topped the standings, with Toyota Gazoo Racing SA teammate Henk Ladergan in 2nd place. Atlas Copco's Chris Visser was in 3rd, with Redline Motorsports' Terence Marsh in 4th. 5th place belonged to Johan van Staden in the Alf Renault Duster. So that's how the chips had fallen thus far this series, and with just 2 rounds to go, there was a hell of a lot on the line in Harrismith. We caught up with some of the key players prior to the qualifying race to get their take not only on the championship, but also the race that lay ahead. Having recorded his first overall win in the previous round, Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Henk Ladergan had every reason to be upbeat about his chances in Harrismith.
So we're chatting about maybe sandbagging a little bit, trying not to be first on the road because it's going to be difficult to open the road. But then you could lose a lot of time, or you could have a problem in the prologue. So at this point, I think we're just going to go for it.
But Ladergan would certainly face plenty of opposition. If not from the rest of the field, then certainly from teammate Janil de Villiers. The defending champion has proven his tenacity over many years, and Harrismith would be a chance at redemption after his DNF in Bronkhorstspruit.
Hopefully we'll have a clean run this time. Last race we unfortunately didn't finish, so we lost a couple of points there for the championship. So we need to make sure that we finish this race in a good position.
The Harrismith 400 also saw the welcome return of the 4x4 Mega World team, including Jason Fenter, who competes in Class FIA in the Toyota Hilux, alongside the factory entries.
It will be my last race for the season this year due to working. We're going to America later in the year, so we're just here to enjoy ourselves for one last time this year.
Class FIA also saw 2 entries from the Redline Motorsport in this Navara squad, as Terence Marsh explains.
We have 2 cars out here this weekend. It's myself and Lyndon Posket in the one car, and in the second car we have Thomas Bell and Patrick McMurran. They're in preparation at the moment for the 2019 Dakar. So they basically are racing in South Africa this week cross country. They then move back to Dubai for some Emirates Bahas this next week in the desert. So yeah, everything lead up now for them to Dakar 2019, you know.
Marsh's celebrity navigator for this race was Lyndon Posket.
It's been easier than I thought, but definitely a challenge because certainly from a navigation point of view, when you're on a motorcycle, you read the note and keep it in here, and you see the picture and you know where to go. Now you've got to try and explain it in a very clear and concise way and not to confuse the driver. And that's the hardest part.
Over on the Class T side of proceedings, the age-old battle rages on as strong as ever.
I think there's 3 or 4 points in it at the moment, so it's still anybody's championship. So this weekend is going to be really important for both parties. Yeah, it's exciting. It's what motorsport should be about, and may the best man win.
It was Lance Woolridge who topped the standings going into the Harrismith 400, and the Ford NWM driver had to find the balance between pushing really hard and finishing well enough to set himself up for the championship win come the last round.
I think it's gonna go right to the last race, and whoever flinches, got to try to prevent that.
But the guys in the red corner certainly weren't going to sit back and watch as the Fords made off with all the points, and Malalan Toyota's Johan Horn knew exactly what was at stake in Harrismith.
Still in the fight with Lance for the championship. So yeah, we've got 2 events left. So yeah, if we want to do something, I think we have to do it in these 2 events.
A dark horse in the championship fight, and one that could still upset the entire apple cart, is Gary Berthold. The Atlas Copco Hilux driver brought home maximum points in Bronkhorstspruit last month and was ready to push hard for points yet again.
Yeah, it's been great. Nice to have won the last one at Bronkhorstspruit, the Atlas Copco event, and the first 3 are close, and we're still in the hunt for the championship. So hopefully we can bring this Atlas Copco Hilux to the podium again to get some valuable points.
And in the fight for the special vehicle category, it was 4x4 Mega World's Kutsia Labuskakny who arrived in Harrismith with a single point advantage over John Talford. But the burly former rugby player, as always, had a plan.
But yeah, we're confident, but we will do the same thing that we always done. Go out, enjoy, drive as hard as we can for as long as we can, see where we finish.
Big Johnny Talford may have been Labuskakny's closest rival, but in a sense, the momentum had now swung in the direction of Stefan van Vletsen, who bagged maximum points in the Live Lesotho Chenoweth in Bronkhorstspruit.
Yeah, it's possible if we do well this weekend, and he's also finishing, then it's a possibility. Next 2 races, for sure.
And with that, it's time to move into the action from the qualifying race at the Harrismith 400, round 5 of the 2018 SACCS. The quali was set to take place over a distance of 40 kilometres, with a selected section of stage featuring a mix of terrain types and surfaces, from fast farm tracks to mealie fields to dongas. And this was just qualifying. At precisely 1 o'clock, it was go time in Harrismith, and one by one, the crews took on the qualifying route. The first car into the fray was the Class T Toyota Hilux of Johan and Werner Horn, who had the dubious honour of opening up the route. This certainly didn't help them, as the pair struggled to find their way and lost time. Their problems were compounded, however, by a fan belt that slipped off numerous times. As a result, they posted only the 5th fastest time on the day, losing more than a minute to the leaders. Ahead of the Horns came the 2 Ford NWM Rangers, with Lance Woolridge partnered with Ward Huxtable, leading brother Gareth and his navigator Boyd Dreyer home by just 7 seconds. Even so, both Ford crews lost the best part of 45 seconds to the eventual winner of the qualifying race. Despite this, Lance Woolrich was still upbeat about their chances come the main event.
It's pretty good qualifying. We had a few wrong slots, and I see the times from the cars who started behind us have gotten even faster and faster, so I'm pretty sure it's opened up a lot. So it'll be a different situation tomorrow, but we're perfectly happy where we are. We've got a good position for tomorrow.
Second place in the Class T qualifying race belonged to Richard Leek and Donnie Stassen in their BMW X3. The pair had shown great pace in the past, but mechanical difficulties have often robbed them of better results. This time, however, everything fell just into place. And so onto the top step of the Class T qualifying race. This went to local lad Jacques Van Tonder, who has been showing consistent improvements throughout the 2018 season. The young man finally bagged the great result he's been working towards, and what better place to do it than in Harrismith, your backyard.
Before the race, me and Sammy just sat down and said it's time to raise the bar for us and really show people that we need to come here to compete and try to keep up this pace throughout the season and next season.
There was disappointment for the winners of the previous round, Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott. The pair suffered a broken diff 19 kilometres into the qualifier and a broken prop shaft just 5 kilometres further down the road. This forced them to retire from the qualifier, and they would start much lower down the order as a result. Class S saw championship hopefuls David Huddy and Gerrit Skitter in their Nissan Navara post only the third quickest time in qualifying. Not what they had hoped for, and they lost nearly 2 minutes on the day. Ahead of them came Atlas Copco's Archie Rutherford and navigator Peter van Wyk in a Toyota Hilux. But the win on the day went to reigning Class S champions, Jannie Visser with his son Chris reading the notes in their Toyota Hilux. And so on to the big boys at the head of the field. Remember, Chenil de Villiers found himself under pressure after a DNF on the previous round cost him dearly, so he was gunning for a good one at this round. But let's count backwards from 5 to 1 and see where de Villiers and co-driver Dennis Murphy ended up. Fifth place went to the Alfa Renault Duster crew of Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, who went 1 minute and 17 seconds slower than the eventual race winners. Not a bad performance at all. Ahead of them came two Century Racing two-wheel drive buggies. Mark Corbett and John Moore posted a time some 24 seconds quicker than that of Van Staden, with the motorcycle lads Brian Baragwanath and Joey Evans going 9 seconds faster than them to take third on the day. Chris Visser and Phil Herseman in the Class FIA Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux have shown their worth many times in the past, but a win so far in 2018 has still eluded them. But a good qualifier saw them go second fastest, just 38 seconds behind the eventual pole sitters. And pole position? Well, that went to the factory Toyota Gazoo Racing SA crew of Henk Ladeghan and Barry White in their fearsome Class FIA Toyota Hilux. Their time of 27 minutes and 30 seconds was the best of the day, setting them up to open the road come the main event. But what of de Villiers and Murphy, who were under so much pressure to perform at this event? The Toyota Gazoo Racing SA crew didn't feature in the top 5 of the qualifying leaderboard, and as a matter of fact, they weren't on the board at all after failing to complete the qualifying race. Here's navigator Dennis Murphy and the story of what went down.
We went 3Ks into the race and broke a tire on the right side. We don't know why yet, but the guys are busy looking now to see what's wrong, and we'll hopefully get it fixed for tomorrow.
And so onto the special vehicles, where Keith McInerney set the pace in Class P, just pipping Nick Gosler on the day. Up in Class A, Telford and Nsheki managed only the 5th fastest time, giving up 1 minute and 43 to the leaders. With that said, they had championship leaders Kutsia and daughter Sandra just 25 seconds up the road, so not a disaster from the championship point of view. The 4x4 Mega World crew in the meantime were just 17 seconds behind the Liv Lesotho pairing of Werner Kennedy and CJ Van Pletzen, who went 3rd fastest on the day. Ahead of them came the two KZN crews, with the Voigt twins pegging 2nd place, just 24 seconds behind the winners. And those winners? Well, after a tough race, the spoils went to big Lance Trethewey and little Adrian Roots, also affectionately known as Little and Large. The pair brought their Bat Venom home in just 28 minutes and 12 seconds, setting themselves up perfectly for the main race.
We had a good time trial, and then we had a bit of a problem with the alternator, and so So we just put a new one on now, and otherwise we had a clean run.
Stefan van Pletsen and Jaco Pieterse in the meantime were handed a penalty, resulting in the Lindesitu crew starting much lower down the order than they would have hoped. Right, so let's take a quick look at the numbers. In the specials, it was Truthui from the Voits with Kennedy and Van Pletsen in third. Kutsia and Sandro Labuskakny in fourth, with Talford and Nsheki breathing down their necks in a close fifth. Class S saw the Fissers take the spoils, with Rutherford and Van Veek in second and Huddy and Skitter taking third. In the Class T battle, that went to the local lads, Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis in their Ford Ranger, with Leek and Stassen just 13 seconds behind. Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable followed in third, with Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer going fourth fastest. The Horn brothers found themselves down in fifth place, with a mountain to climb come race day, whilst Gary Berthold and Jeff Minnett failed to complete the qualifying race. And finally, Class FIA saw Henk Latergan and Barry White top the standings, with Visser and Husselman in second, Baragwanath and Evans in third, and Corbett and Moore in fourth. Fifth place went to Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, whilst defending champ De Villiers and Murphy would have to start way down the order after failing to finish the race. And that wraps things up for the opening day of the 2018 Harrismith 400. But that was only 40 kilometres out of 400 done. There was plenty more still to come on Saturday, and thankfully the wind died down just ever so slightly for the main event.
Hello, Sunny Banani, Dumelang, and welcome to another episode of the world of buying and selling. Yep, that's right. It's time for Buyer's Guide.
Adam Ford and Segi Mudley, together with a panel of expert guests, have years of experience under their belts to advise you on your next automotive decision. Whether it be choosing between your next new or used vehicle purchase.
So for me, the i20 because it's more spacious, but the Picanto would be more affordable.
To mechanical advice.
I feel that the service and quality has been slipping slightly too.
To warranty and service plan advice.
In the Mazdas, the 3-year warranty isn't extendable to 5 years.
And sometimes we just have a good laugh as well.
You like ugly cars. Mark!
That's Buyer's Guide, your one-stop shop for all your motoring needs. Only on Ignition, DSTV channel 189.
This week on Auto Mondial, Hyundai still believes that the estate is not a dying breed and have released a rather attractive i30 Tourer. GMC plans to tackle the perennial Ford Raptor with the Sierra Denali. And Renault refreshes the underwhelming Kadjar. That's Auto Mondial, only on Ignition, DSTV channel 189.
Welcome back, and this was it. Race day here at the Harrismith 400, the penultimate round of the coveted 2018 South African Cross Country Series. As in the sport of golf, the penultimate round is usually the one in which to make a move, as it can often influence the outcome of the entire championship. So the more than 30 drivers and navigators that made up the field here in Harrismith would have been very aware of exactly what the challenge was. To add to the challenge, Mother Nature joined the party by unleashing more gale force winds that blew in excess of 60 kilometers an hour, which made it rather unpleasant outside the cars. The advantage though, once inside the race cars and behind the steering wheel, is that the wind could help clear the dust from the competitor ahead, giving the ones lower down the field the opportunity to have a clean run. So the qualifying route from the day before gave the cross-country brigade a taster of what Harrismith countryside had to offer. But the Friday qualifying race was only 40 kilometers long. On the cards for race day, 2 identical loops, each covering a full 174 kilometers on both sides of the N3 to the north of the town that marks the halfway spot between Gauteng and Durban. The route had it all: fast sections in the open farmlands, rough sections, and dry river crossings. As the clock was nearing the 8 o'clock official start time, drivers and navigators were getting ready. Team members were doing final checks, and spectators were preparing themselves for a long and windy day out in the field. As winners of the qualifying race the day before, the honour of opening the road belonged to the factory Toyota Gazoo racing squad of Henk Latergan and co-driver Barry White. The wind helped to clear the dust as the full field of national competitors made their way into the Free State countryside in their quest for glory. Back to the front, where previous race winners and current race leaders Henk Latergan and Barry White were finding the going tough, or rather found it tough to find the route. It is sometimes an advantage to be first car out, but mostly, and especially here in the Free State, it was extremely tough to be out front and trying to find the correct way. As a result, both Latergan as well as a number of other drivers close to the front of the field told stories of getting a little lost, or at least wrong slotting, on several occasions. Local heroes Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis put their local knowledge to good use, but even so, they too found the going a little tough early on. As did the pairing of Richard Leek and Donnie Stassen, who were third on the road. With a few sets of tracks to follow, it was Atlas Copco main man Chris Visser who put the hammer down and provided most of the fireworks early on. He started the race with a 38-second deficit to the factory Hilux of Latergan, but in the second half of the loop, the Northwest farmer and businessman started to close the gap. After nearly 2 hours of racing, Visser finally moved into the overall and virtual race lead of the event. Both Van Tonder and Leek sliding down the virtual leaderboard, a few drivers further down the field made good use of their superior road position to climb up the leaderboard and challenge for victory in their respective classes. One such crew was the pairing of Brian Baragwanath and Dakar biking hero Joey Evans, who started the race from 6 on the road, but the Century CR5 driver slowly picked them off one by one to move into second position overall. Less than 30 seconds behind race leaders Visser and Herselman, but only 7 seconds ahead of Latergan. Following a cross-country race where the competitors start their respective runs in 2-minute intervals could be quite difficult. Taking qualifying times and then the actual race times into account, sometimes one doesn't exactly know who is sitting where until most or all the competitors have at least completed the first of their 2 racing loops. In Class S of the production vehicle car field, the usual suspects were once again at it. The list consisted of the Atlas Copco Hilux of Archie Rutherford with son Kent reading the notes, wily old Fox and multiple former champion Yanni Visser also with son Chris Jr. in the hot seat of their trusty old Hilux, and the Nissan Navara of David Huddy and the experienced, level-headed Gerard Skitter doing the navigating. Unfortunately for the Rutherfords, suspension issues put a premature end to their challenge, leaving the Vissers to fight it out with Huddy and Skitter. Both managed to complete the first loop, with Visser edging out more than 6 minutes the advantage over the Nissan of Huddy.
Yeah, we had a good run. We had one mishap. We had a wrong slot, just about 5 k's from the start. And luckily we find it quickly and on the road again, and further no problems.
The highly competitive Class T has for long been the battleground for the raging war between the 2 big role players in the Bakkie market, Toyota and Ford. It is also currently the scene for the championship battle between Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable in their NWM Ford Ranger and the Horn brothers, Johan and Werner, in their Malalan Toyota Hilux. The Horns are the defending Class T champions, but it was about to go wrong for them here in Harrismith when the fan belt kept falling off over and over again. They lost almost half an hour in the process and were devastated to finish the first loop near the bottom of the standings, just ahead of the 4x4 Mega World Toyota of the youngsters Dylan Fenter and Donovan Lubber, who were also having troubles of their own. Ahead of them, the Atlas Copco Hilux crew of Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott were fighting their way through the field after starting from the back, following their failure to complete the qualifying race the day before. Berthold has great pace and was able to showcase it as he climbed the Class T leaderboard all the way up to 5th place at the halfway marker of the event. Ahead of Berthold was the Class Championship leading Ford of Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable. Woolwich didn't have the cleanest of runs either, as it included a few wrong slots and getting stuck for around 2 minutes in what was probably the only mud hole in the entire Free State. But more importantly, he had championship rivals, the Horns, behind him, and that's what mattered at this stage of the fight. Woolwich was beaten to the halfway mark by the local pairing of Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuyse. Van Tonder had a great qualifying session, but his road position near the very front of the field cost him a few valuable minutes come race day. The same could probably be said of the Speed Class BMW crew of young Richard Leake and Donnie Stassen, who also found navigation tricky and had to nurse an overheating engine. But even so, the youngster was having one of his best races since joining the cross-country scene and reached the end of Loop 1 in a fine position in Class T. This meant that the Class T lead at the halfway marker belonged to none other than the NWM Ford Ranger of Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer. Woolridge had just returned from a successful outing in Brazil, so the younger of the two Woolridge brothers had his tail up coming into Harrismith. His run wasn't without incident though, as a banging noise near the front right of the Ford Ranger turned out to be a broken shock absorber, which they had to nurse to the safety of the designated service park. So that's how it stacked up at the halfway mark of the Class T vehicles. But what about the Class FIA vehicles that are built to Dakar specs? Atlas Copco man Chris Visser was still on a charge after moving past Henk Ladergan to take the overall lead of the race, with a rapid Brian Baragwanath in hot pursuit. The Dakar quad bike star is due a good result, but mechanical niggles once again put paid to his efforts, and he was forced to lose a load of time. And enter Jason Venter and Navi Jaco van Aert. The 4x4 Mega World crew missed the previous round but decided to enter Harrismith with only one objective: to have fun. The strategy paid off for Venter, as he was third in class as well as third overall at the halfway marker of the event. But the men who really turned up the wick were Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy. The current champion and Toyota Gazoo Racing Dakar star started way down the order following his failure to complete the qualifying race, but he blitzed through the field to reach the halfway marker in 5th place overall and 4th in Class FIA, well ahead of the Century CR6 driven by Mark Corbett and John Moore, who also lost time after getting stuck in the same mud hole that had claimed Lance Woolridge earlier. Johan van Staden was the next FIA car in the line, with Mike Lawrence alongside him in the immaculate Alf Renault Duster, who completed the loop as the 6th car in the Class FIA standings on the board. Ahead of them was a recovering Brian Baragwanath and the Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara from the international pairing of Thomas Bell and Patrick McMurran, who were using Harrismith to prepare themselves for their 2019 attempt at taking on the Dakar. They fared better than teammates Terence Marsh and celebrity navigator Lyndon Poskett, who unfortunately failed to reach the halfway marker due to a failed front right broken suspension in their Nissan Navara. With most of the field safely at the designated service park, it was time to take stock and add up the numbers. In Class S on the production vehicle leaderboard, it was Jannie Visser with a healthy margin over David Huddy. At the top of Class T, Gareth Woolridge had more than 2 minutes over Richard Leake in a great second place, with local man Van Tonder completing the halfway marker podium. As far as the overall championship was concerned, Lance Woolridge was ahead of his title rivals, the Horn brothers. Johan Horn was less than happy so far.
Yeah, we had a bad first loop. Our power steering belt came off 20 k's in the first loop, and then we managed to fix it, and then 20 k's before the end it came off again, so we had to stop again and put it back. So yeah, we lost a lot of time.
At the front end of the Class T field, it was all going according to plan for Gareth Woolridge, despite a few small issues.
We had a shock fail. About 60 kilometers in, I started to feel the front right was knocking quite badly. So we stopped to check what the problem was, but there was no oil, no signs of damage. So we didn't know what it was. I carried on after that, sort of at 70%, quite anxious as to what the hell this noise was. But I figured after a while it was the shock. And yeah, we did all right. We made up some time and we're leading Class T now. So we need to consolidate and keep it there. That's the key for me, to keep the concentration this next lap and bring it home.
This was the Class FIA leaderboard at the halfway marker, and the name at the top was none other than Chris Visser, who had a fairly comfortable lead of 1 minute and 23 seconds over the factory Toyota driver Henk Ladergan, with Jason Venter a further 11 seconds back, whilst de Villiers bounced back following a blisteringly quick first lap. Let's hear from defending champion De Villiers about his rise back up the leaderboard.
We tried to make up as much time as we could, so first lap is always the time when you can make up some time. Second lap is not so easy, so we'll see now. We'll just try to keep it clean again and see where we finish.
But Loop 1 was all about this man, former champion and all-round nice guy, Chris Visser.
Yeah, it was very good. We caught up to the guys in front of us, the two Class T cars, and luckily they made way for us. And from there on, it was quite difficult to find the route. We made a little bit of time on the ink, but yeah, I see Jamil had a good first lap. So yeah, but other than that, the car was very good. Thanks.
The NGN Polo Cup forms part of the Extreme Festival, the premier categories in circuit racing. We head all around the country to bring you action just like this at all the circuits for the Extreme Festival. The NGN Polo Cup here on Ignition, DSTV, Channel 189.
Coming up, Craig, 4 terrific first round fights. Dan Tom Keir will be meeting Gravity. Exterminator will fight Centagro. Bulldog Breed meets Tough as Nails. But first up, Tornado, who reached the semi-finals by disposing of Tetanus in the heat. And Raging Nightmare, who surprisingly beat the seeded Spawn Again to get this far.
So that was the story so far, but it was only the halfway marker of our story and the event. Besides the number of the production cars spread across the various categories, cross-country racing also hosts a number of very special, madly fast and powerful open-wheel racing machines that would be at home on the set of a Mad Max or Star Wars movie. These cars are competing in the aptly named Special Vehicle category. And as a winner of the qualifying race, it was Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots alongside him who led the way through the Free State countryside. Trethewey had led a race or two earlier this year, but it wasn't to be, as each time Lady Luck interfered and robbed him of a certain victory. This time, the big man was determined to keep Lady Luck far away from his bat venom, and so far so good. Trethewey reached the halfway mark with his car still intact, as well as the overall Special Vehicle lead. But it was, however, a very narrow lead, as fellow KZN racers, twin brothers Andre and Ralph Voits, were in hot pursuit. These were the same two that won the Battlefields race earlier this year when Trethewey was forced to retire, and halfway through the race, they were very much in contention. In fact, only 12 seconds separated them from Big Lance out front. Championship hopefuls, father and daughter Kutsia Labuskakny and Sandra Labuskakny-Yonk, were a few minutes back at the halfway marker, but the 4x4 Mega World driver saw the bigger picture and knew exactly what he had to do. And that was to stay ahead of championship and title rivals Stefan van Pletzen and Jaco Pieterse in the Live Lesotho Chenneworth, but especially the Bat Warbird of John Telford and Victor Nsheki, who survived a very scary moment that saw them nearly rolling after hitting a ditch at high speed. The second Live Lesotho car of Werner Kennedy and CJ van Pletzen were forced to throw in the towel with clutch problems. The Porter cried no more. Class B of the Special Vehicle category saw a consistent run from Keith McInerney and Ntote Bareng, who kept their noses clean behind the wheel of their Bat Spec 3 to hang on to the virtual Class B lead ahead of Class Championship leaders Nick Gosler and Joe Lima, who had to deal with a misfiring engine under the bonnet of their Zarco Magnum. Here it is then, confirmation of McInerney's lead in Class P, whilst Labuskakny managed to stay ahead of his title rivals. Whilst at the top of the charts, it was Lance Trethewey and the Voits, KZN, controlling the race, running 1 and 2, heading into lap 2.
Quite technical and tough, very, very slippery, and the conditions were changing all the time, but very, very nice, well marked, and we really enjoyed it. So this loop now, we're going to push and get to the end, and let's see how we go. I think there's 12 seconds to us to Voice, so we'll see how we go.
Adding to the spectacle of cross-country racing this year is something that you may or may not have heard of. It's called the Side-by-Side Interprovincial Challenge. But here's class expert and regular frontrunner Werner Mostert to tell us all about it.
The side-by-side class we started in 2011 when we joined the National Series. Unfortunately, the cars we were running then were very low in power. The class wasn't that big. We had about 6 cars running, and then we progressively increased the units to be able to race, and we increased the numbers at the races. And then we gave it a bit of a break, give the guys just time to get used to their cars. So we went to the regional racing, went to club racing, and then eventually this year we decided to bring it back to the National Series. It's quite a nice class for us at the moment. We have about 8 cars racing in the National Series, and then in the regionals there's probably still another 8 cars out there. So in total we're close to 16 cars racing in these side-by-side series at the moment. The cars become very competitive now. The new generation cars, they're all 900cc, turbocharged, 172 horsepower, acceleration 0 to 104.9 seconds. So in tight sections, when it's a circuit that's very, very tight, these cars are very competitive to the bigger cars and the bigger buckets. Unfortunately, we just lack the top end as we are limited to 140 km an hour. These cars that we're racing at the moment, these are your Can-Am Maverick X3 XRSs. They come from the factory race ready. You can basically put a helmet on, put a suit on, and you can get in this car and you can go race this car. That's how well they are built. You don't need to do anything on it. It's the cheapest form of joining cross-country racing in these cars. If you want to get into this kind of racing, you can start off, a car will cost you around the region of about 550,000. You add a helmet, a suit, for less than 600,000, you can actually be competitive in this car and you can join the cross-country series with this car. It is still the most cheapest way of racing cross-country.
So these Can-Am Mavericks represent the most affordable way to do cross-country racing, but they are by no means slow. In fact, their times on certain sections are very competitive and right up there with the much more expensive production cars and special vehicles. As the class is still an interprovincial challenge for now, the competitors only had to race one of the 2 loops. Unfortunately for Ernest Roberts, the previous round winner, alongside Stewie Creevy, they failed to reach the finish, whilst the Peter Walter and Sean de Villiers pairing were also forced to retire early on. This opened the way for the tough battle between Werner Mostert alongside JG Claassen and Nico Durant, with Henry Kerner on the notes. When the checkered flag was waved, it was Nico Durant who claimed a close-fought victory, less than a minute and a half ahead of Mostert.
So far so good. I think this one actually gave us the championship. So now for the last race, you can take it quite easy. So yeah, it's very nice route. All the sponsors, the route guys, excellent job. Yeah, very well.
That's it from Harrismith for now. After the break, we return to see the conclusion of the race and to find the answers of a number of very important questions. Will Visser hang on to the lead? Will Trithui do the same for the special vehicle category? And who will edge closer to the Class T title?
Coming up in this episode of Supercar TV, we have a preview of the Huayra at Anglesey, and Shmi and the team travel across Italy to reach Modena, where they're visiting the Pagani workshop and showroom. In part 2, we have an exclusive interview with Horatio Pagani and a look at the brand new Pagani British showroom.
This week on The Bike Show, it's a show of adventure and no death. Matt returns from Portugal with his report on the BMW R1250 GS on The Bike Show this week.
Welcome back to Harrismith, where the wind was blowing even stronger as the penultimate round of the 2018 South African Cross Country Series was drawing to a close. But not even the windy conditions could harm the festive atmosphere at the Irams Farmers Complex, around 20 kilometers north of Harrismith, where both the locals and visitors from far and wide were out in full force to support the exciting and spectacular sport of cross-country racing. But no one knows the area better than local businessman, former cross-country racer and father of current racer Jacques van Tonder. We're talking about Cobus van Tonder, a man who himself has a long and successful association with this great sport.
I've started in 2004, only when most people actually stopped racing. I started with ex-Dakar Pajero that I obtained from people, actually N1 4x4. Neil Woolwich raced that car actually in the Dakar and ended up third in his class. So that's where I've started, and then 2 seasons after that I've decided I must actually step up a little bit, and then we bought a car from Neil, and he was very helpful getting us to obtain the car. And then I started with one of the oaks that was working for me, navigating for me.
After spending years in the sport as a competitor, the Harrismith resident decided to put time and effort back into the sport, especially when it comes to arranging this specific event.
We're actually very glad that they bring it down here, and so that the local people can see what the racing is about. The main advantage is the money that it brings to the town. Accommodate all these people and feed them, and for the Farmers Union here and the ladies that are doing the catering, they really enjoy doing and be part of the race. And last year I believe they're doing quite well. So they are very interested in what we're doing at the moment. Yeah, no, I put a lot of effort in. Actually, I enjoy it, helping to put a route together, and I know the farmers, and the Oaks are very cooperative here. They support the racing. I mean, really the farmers helped us a lot, and they've don't mind giving us the opportunity to drive on their land. But on the other hand, the racers must just respect where they're racing. That's somebody else's land that they're racing.
And to crown it all, his son Jacques is one of the regular runners in the highly competitive Class T of the sport, from behind the wheel of his Unifreight and Road to Dakar Ford Ranger. But as Kobus explains, the young man is earning his seat at the sharp end of cross-country racing.
It's getting so expensive that Jacques managed to get some sponsors, and that's the reason why he can actually race, because it's, as you know, the sport is really expensive. Most important is the assistance we get from Neil Woolwich Motorsport. I mean, all our components go down to them. They do the gearbox, dips, shocks, everything go down to them, and they're always there to help us. So actually I want to thank them a lot, that they're so helpful to us and grateful to us.
It was time once again for all the remaining crews to once again don their helmets and gloves, to strap themselves in one more time, and to put on their race faces, as one more small matter remains. The matter of successfully completing Loop 2, the next and last 174 kilometers of the Harrismith 400. Let's start with the way it turned out for the Brave Warriors in the special vehicle category, and more specifically for the championship points leader Nick Gosler and co-driver Joe Lima. They completed the first loop around 2.5 minutes off the class leading pace, but their Zarco Magnum was suffering from a misfire which got worse during Loop 2 and eventually forced them to call it a day. This cleared the way for the popular pairing of Keith McInerney and co-driver Tote Bareng to put their heads down and bring their Bat Spec 2 safely home to record their first Class P special victory of the 2018 season. McInerney hasn't had the best of luck so far this year, but his victory was well deserved, as he didn't put a foot wrong all weekend.
Yes, no, after yesterday's drama where we had to bring down the gearbox, today clean run, didn't get out of the car, enjoyed it. Well, this has been a terrible season for us. I mean, we needed today, just to keep the motivation of the whole team up. When you race, the most important thing is to get to the finishing line. And we needed to do that for the whole team as supporters and sponsors. So it was important for us to finish.
With Class P settled, the question was what would happen to the hopefuls in Class A. Unfortunately for the Liv Lesotho crew of Stefan Van Pletzen and Jaco Pieterse, they would have no further say as they were forced to retire from the race during the second loop. This meant that all the remaining special vehicle drama was reserved for the remaining Class A crews that consisted of Kutsia and Sandra Labuskakny in their 4x4 Megaworld Porter, John Telford and Victor Nsheki in the Bat Warbird, and the Voigt twins in their Bat Venom, as well as the second Bat Venom of race leader Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots. Our cameras were unfortunately not at the exact place where the unfolding drama took place, but well into Loop 2, Telford experienced a communication system malfunction in his bat. Meanwhile, title rival, father and daughter pairing Kutsia and Sandra Labuskakny were climbing the ranks in their 4x4 Mega World Porter, only to suffer from a punctured tyre 30 kilometres from the end. This put them and the bat of Telford on roughly the same piece of dirt at the same time. What followed was a fierce battle that involved contact between the two cars and two very unhappy crews. But they will all live to race another day. In the end, the results showed that Telford beat the Labuskaknys to the line by claiming third position in the special vehicle race. This left us with the two protagonists to the special vehicle crown, Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots, and the similar car driven by the Voigt twins of Andre and Ralph. The Voigts got to within striking distance of their fellow KZN racers, but then it all went wrong. Firstly, their fuel pump started acting up, robbing them of valuable power, and then they spent a very long time changing a flat tyre. In the end, they had no choice but to simply limp home. This meant that the big man, Lance Trethewey from Kluklui, together with Adrian Roots, stormed to an emphatic Class A and overall special vehicle victory, their first of 2018 and hopefully, for them, not the last. Besides having a broken alternator the day before, the big man enjoyed a clean run with few or no mistakes, exactly what you need to do to win at this level. There it is then, proof of McInerney's victory in Class P and an emphatic win for Big Lance over the Voigts, Telford and Labuskakny.
Great to be on the top step again. Yeah, we've had a couple of bad results, but otherwise, yeah, I'm very happy. The team did well. Our mechanics, Adrian, the navigator, my family always being here to help me and support me. And without all of them, it's not possible. So just like to say thanks to everybody that's helped us get here to the top.
Today in Supercars, it gets elegant. We present the new Maserati Quattroporte in the GTS version with new twin-turbo V8. We drive the BMW 640i Grand Coupe, tuned by Kelleners. And drive the most classic sports convertible of them all, the Porsche 911 4S.
The Red Square ZX10 Masters Cup Series is one of South Africa's premier racing categories. The racing is fast and furious, with riders on evenly matched Kawasaki ZX10s vying for honours on the best circuits. Catch all this racing only on Ignition DSTV, channel 189.
So that's how it stacked up for the Mad Maxes in the special vehicle category, but we still had to find out who the podium finishers were in all the production vehicle categories. Earlier in the day, we heard from many of the crews that it was extremely difficult to find the correct route here in Harrismith. It may sound simple, but finding the correct route whilst driving at 110% and at the same time deciding which side of the gate or windmill or whatever other obstacle to go, along with what speed to tackle all these obstacles and challenges, is one hell of a task. Fortunately for the driver, they have a trustworthy ally in their respective navigators, and of course, the all-important roadbook. Here's NWM Ford's Ward Huxtable to explain how it all works.
Well, the pictographs depict where the route's going to be going. These numbers here, that's the total distance, and the bottom number is the intermediate distance. So in this particular case, between the two instructions, there's 310 meters with a 45 right with a hump on approach. So I've just got to warn them that there's a bit of danger on the right turn on that particular instruction. On this instruction here, we've got a similar situation where we've got a hump on the approach to the 90, followed immediately by a 90 left. So I'm able to warn him in advance what to anticipate in terms of whether he's going to be going left or right, or whether he's going to be experiencing any dangers that he can't see yet. I watch my odometers, and I compare the odometer reading to the indicative reading on the book, and then I'm able to ascertain, yes, I'm on the correct instruction. And from then on, I'm resetting the odometers at every intermediate stage, which enables me to stay on the book all the time.
With all the navigators, with the help of their road books, trying their best to guide the drivers through the final 180 odd kilometres of the Harrismith 400, it was time to study the stopwatch to determine who would come out on top in the race for production car honours. Firstly, it was easy to see who would not make it to the end. Class S leader and veteran Jannie Visser was leading the battle after Loop 1, but a broken front hub in the second loop halted his progress. This left the door open for David Huddy and Gerrit Skitter to steer their Nissan Navara to a well-deserved Class S victory, and in so, extended their Class S championship points in the process. Huddy was rightfully delighted.
Had a long season. We've been pushing at championships, lying first overall in Class S. Guys have put a lot of hard work in. Very grateful to our team and our sponsors, and the tactics worked. Let the guys go out and chase them from behind, and we finished first, so it was a great race for us.
With Class S done and dusted, it was time to shift the attention to Class T, where young Dylan Fenter and Donovan Lubber did a great job of bringing the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux home to score their first valuable points of the season. Just ahead of Fenter, but most certainly not where they wanted to be, was the Malalan Toyota Hilux pairing of Johan and Werner Horn. The siblings lost loads of time in Loop 1 thanks to a fan belt that kept slipping off. On Loop 2, it got even worse as the problems persisted and cost them at least another 15 minutes and any chance of scoring decent points. The defending champions will have their work cut out now at the final round. And was it not for trouble during qualifying? Atlas Copco stars Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott could well have won the Class T battle. But could have and would have mean very little in motorsport. Berthold did, however, set the fastest Class T times in both loops, so this time it was indeed a case of what could have been. For Class T points leaders Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, it was a matter of consolidating their advantage over the Horn brothers, which they managed to do, but only just. Around 100 kilometres into their last loop, their brakes failed, nearly causing them to crash. Woolridge did, however, manage to nurse the car home on the handbrake to claim 4th position in the progress and hang on to the championship lead. Lance Woolridge missed out on the Class T podium by less than a minute, and that podium position belonged to local hero Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinges, who drove an exceptional race that involved going fast without making too many mistakes. The Harrismith local will surely have his eyes set on more podium finishes in the future. But so too will Richard Leek, alongside multiple champion navigator Donnie Stassen. Second in Class T was their best result so far for the driver who also competes in the South African National Rally Championship. His speed class BMW performed well despite being a little down on power compared to his rivals, and they completed most of lap 2 without brakes as well. So the pairing reached the finish relieved and on the podium. Most relieved though and delighted were the Class T winners, Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer. The younger of the two Woolridge brothers is not having the best season so far, but here in Harrismith it finally came together for the young man. A broken shock on Loop 1 slowed him down a touch, but Loop 2 was clean, allowing him to claim the class win with a comfortable winning margin of 6 minutes. And there it is, the names of Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer topping the Class T scoreboard ahead of Richard Leek and local superstar Van Tonder. Lance Woolridge increases his championship points lead over rivals the Horn brothers, whilst David Huddy nails down a Class S victory. And finally, time to wrap up the FIA class, where international driver Thomas Bell managed to reach the end in the Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara. Harrismith was a case of what could have been, though, for Brian Baragwanath, as he showed race-winning pace early on. But the talented youngster will have to wait yet again for his day to shine. Whilst the Alfa Renault Duster of Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson failed to reach the finish line courtesy of broken suspension, Harrismith claiming more than one of the top runners. Corbett in the impressive Century CR6 was also slowed down by a few niggles, meaning he also missed out on the Class FIA podium. But even so, the ones who did finish on the podium were absolutely flying. Like the comeback kid, Jason Fenter and Navi Jaco van Aert, Venter was going to sit out the rest of the year, but the 4x4 Mega World driver put in a flawless performance to claim his first Class FIA podium finish of the 2018 season. Venter was under fire from champion Janil de Villiers for a while, but the champion overshot a corner and hit a concrete pipe in his efforts to get back on the road. KZN and no points for the reigning champ. This could prove costly for de Villiers come the end of the season, as his Toyota Gazoo Racing SA teammate Henk Laudeken has now finished first and second in the last 2 races, significantly closing the points gap. Laudeken was fast all weekend and would have been satisfied with his pace, but there was simply nothing that he could do, or anyone for that matter, to stop the flying Chris Visser. The Atlas Copco man took the lead late on loop number 1, drove like a man possessed and never looked back to claim his first Class FIA and overall victory of 2018. A dominant performance for the former champion. Just more than a minute and a half separated Chris Visser and Henk Laudeken in first and second place respectively, with Jason Venter rounding out the Class FIA podium. For once, there was no de Villiers on the scoreboard. The sweet taste of champagne for the respective production car winners, and Gareth Woolridge claiming his first win on SA soil for 2018.
Just came back from Brazil, feeling quite confident, I suppose, after a win there. And yeah, today put our all into it. Yeah, I managed to gel well today. Boyd and I had no mistakes, and we brought it home.
But the Class FIA and overall spoils here in Harrismith belong to the man of the moment, Chris Visser.
Yeah, I must say we've waited long for this result, and yeah, luckily it came today, and yeah, it was awesome. Just want to like to thank the team, Atlas Copco, our sponsors, and Philip did a great job in the navigation, and yeah, I must say the car was excellent, and yeah, thank you to Toyota Motorsport as well, to Glenn and all these guys.
That's it from Harrismith and the penultimate round of the SACCS. It'll now go down to the wire when the series travels to the final round at Goldfields, around the town of Glen Harvey, where a number of the titles are still up for grabs. We'll be there at Glen Harvey on the 2nd of November, answering all those remaining title questions. All the action from the windy Harrismith 400 was brought to you by the SACCS in association with its partners Ford, Toyota and Total Exilium.